when I grew up, there was no question that the team in my hometown, the team that I sold programs for when I was 12 years old, and my mother made a horrible decision just dropping me off in a sea of orange. Fortunately, it was very safe, and maybe 14. And I would sell programs for $2. You'd make 20 cents a program, and I would sell just enough to buy myself a Coke and a hot dog in Neyland Stadium. But really what I cared about is the free ticket. And when I grew up, there was zero question who wide receiver U was. Alvin Harper, Carl Pickens, Stanley Morgan. I could go on and on and on. And it somewhat continued, although I think Joey Kent, as Caleb has put out there before, his numbers were a little inflated playing with Peyton Manning, but Peerless Price was certainly special. Somewhat continued again with Dante Stallworth and Kelly Washington. But all along those times in the late 90s and early 2000s, you saw teams kind of picking away at the wide receiver U title when there used to be zero question. I mean, zero question. Nobody else even argued it. Now, Tennessee, because of the decade of dysfunction that they went through, is certainly not wide receiver U. Certainly not. No question about it. That has probably been Clemson at Tennessee's behest, losing guys like T. Higgins, losing guys like Amari Rodgers. And Clemson at one point had a collection when they won the national title, their last one. I thought they had maybe the best group of receivers I had seen, except for Tennessee in that Pickens group. They were very, very good. And I wonder now, has Tennessee taken that wide receiver U title back from Clemson? So two-part question for you, Caleb Calhoun, Caleb Manning. Two-part question. It's a thing now. Things stick in my head. But Caleb, two-part question. A, has Tennessee wrestled that back from Clemson already? If not, B, will they? What say you, sir?
I think they will. I think the wide receiver U, should we say the wide receiver U title is vacant right now? Because I think Clemson's already lost it. I just don't know if Tennessee's wrestled it back, but I think they will. They started the process with Jalin Hyatt winning the Biletnikoff Award. You got to do a little more than one player winning the Biletnikoff Award, though, obviously. Alabama's still going to compete because Alabama's produced some amazing receivers since 2014.
Yeah, it's almost like their receivers get overlooked because their entire program is so good.
Yeah, exactly. And we're forgetting that since Nick Saban embraced tempo in 2014, which he's going away from it now, that's a big benefit to Tennessee taking this title back. But once they embraced tempo in 2014, they just had an insane run of wide receivers that obviously maximized with Devontae Smith winning the Heisman Trophy. And I think now you're seeing, look, let's call it what it is. Clemson last year could not find a receiver. They couldn't find anybody to go to all season last year if you were watching them. That was a big reason for the issues in their passing game. You can go to local news sites all throughout South Carolina and you'll read story after story from last year saying, where are Clemson's wide receivers? What's going on? Who's stepping up? There's a huge void for Tennessee to fill. If Deontay Thornton does what I think he's going to do, and you know how high I am on Deontay Thornton, if he lives up to that this year, Tennessee's got it back. Because you're going to have Jalin Hyatt winning the Biletnikoff. I think Cedric Tillman's going to be a great a good NFL receiver. I think Brew McCoy has a ton of NFL potential. I think we all agree in terms of NFL prospects, Brew McCoy is the best on this roster, isn't he?
As far as NFL prospects, he's one of the best players in the SEC.
Yes, exactly.
Regardless of position.
Right. Oh, wow. Going there. That makes sense, too, though. I can't disagree.
But I got him in the first-round pick, so how many guys out of the SEC go in the first round year in and year out? 12, 14?
Probably
so
like that.
That to me is, I think he's a top 12 type of talent in the SEC right now when he steps on the field.
Yeah, so you have Brew McCoy. You have Dante Thornton, who may not be the best NFL prospect, but is definitely the best prospect to put up a lot of yards and stats in Josh Heupel's offense. You still have Squirrel White, who can really benefit from this offense.
Squirrel White is getting more run now than Thornton. Now it's just week 1 of spring camp, and Thornton
Nico was on the 4th team at week 1.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And we will have a practice update based off week 1 coming up a little bit later. Okay, but Thornton is more physically gifted in a lot of ways. What I like about Squirrel White, not to get sidetracked, is his shiftiness. Makes me think of like a Julian Edelman guy that in the pros will be able to just find open seams all the time. So,
but you have to have some deadly accuracy to find those type of guys.
Yes, and you got to get the ball out quick, and you got to read quick.
Yeah,
I will say this. I think that Tennessee has not wrestled it away yet, but I think after this year it will be wrestled away, and Tennessee will be considered wide receiver U for a couple of different reasons. I think that Jalin Hyatt will be drafted high, although I question his NFL ability as a complete, well-rounded receiver. I think that Cedric Tillman will be drafted high, and I don't question his ability whatsoever. So there's 2 right there. And then what do you have stepping up? You didn't even mention the name Ramel Keaton, who, if that's your Craig Faulkner, if you remember that.
I know Craig Faulkner.
Okay, yeah. If that's your Craig Faulkner, that's your like 3rd most talented receiver. You're in pretty darn good shape, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, I've always felt Ramel Keaton could be a number 1 receiver if he was forced into it. He just hasn't been forced into it because of Cedric Tillman and Brew McCoy. But Ramel Keaton makes the clutch catches for Tennessee. I don't know if anybody ever notices that. When you need a play, he's there. He had the diving catch against Florida. He had the catch on that last drive against Alabama. I mean, yeah, Jalin Hyatt was the star against Alabama, but Ramel Keaton had the most important catch in that game. And so I think that, look, I'm a huge fan of Ramel Keaton. Again, Craig Faulkner was good. I always saw Jermaine Copeland with Ramel Keaton, and I saw Brett Smith with Ramel Keaton too. Those 2 guys.
I can see both of those. Tennessee will be wide receiver U, and it's going to be soon. It's going to be perhaps after this year. And I believe that because I think Joe Milton will be good enough, or Nico, and I'm not being a Joe Milton hater, Nico will be good enough this year to keep the flow going, so to speak. And then after that, I think that you'll see Nico hit kind of another level, and then you'll see the receivers benefit from that. So, yes, I think that Tennessee will be wide receiver U by 2025, 2026. When you start talking about guys like Squirrel White who have 2 years of eligibility, guys like Thornton that want to be a part of the program, guys like Brew McCoy who is just learning the offense, or Ramel Keaton who continues to ascend, I have no question in my mind, Caleb, that Tennessee will be wide receiver U. Part of that will be based off Tennessee's ability at quarterback and Josh Heupel's scheme, but it doesn't matter. Tennessee was a little bit ahead of the curve when they ran a pro style in the late 80s and early 90s. So
should have won a national championship with that talent.
Yeah, no question. The receivers benefited from that. So I will, yeah, I don't have any question. I think they're more likely to be wide receiver U than quarterback U. I think you need a run of 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks before you get to that point. And yeah, I mean, I think Clemson, you're right, has released the grip on that award, and I think Tennessee picks it up within a couple of years.
Not to mention, we should mention this. Sonny Dykes, not his offense coordinator from last year, is now at Clemson. Garrett Riley, I believe is his name.
Yes.
And
Lincoln's brother.
Okay, yes. The air raid is a pass-happy system that spreads the ball around a lot more. So you don't – Josh Heupel, as we've talked about, likes to shorten the rotation. He likes 2 or 3 guys. That was it. Whereas the air raid really goes 5 or 6 deep. Like last year – yeah, they had a 1,000-yard receiver, but he only had like 1,039, and it was just barely over. It wasn't Jalin Hyatt numbers. And so you're going to see a lot more of that than you would have in what Clemson used to run. It's I don't know what your philosophy is on shortening rotations or not. I'm a big believer in it because I covered Tennessee in 2005 and 2006. And I think one of the biggest benefits to Eric Ainge improving, I don't know how you feel about it, was David Cutcliffe came in and said, we're going to have 2 receivers. That's it. And Robert Meacham's your go-to guy.
I agree. I think it's tough to get in a flow at receiver if you don't play consistently. Running backs have said that for years, and I thought that was a bunch of bull, quite frankly. I mean, I think you can go in there, and I don't think you need to get in a flow as a running back, but I do think that you need to get in a flow as a receiver, especially in this offense. And I think that Tennessee's conditioning program is so good that you don't have to play multiple guys. Let's not forget. I mean, this conditioning program has to be right up at the top of anybody in the nation to run this type of offense.